Hi there, my name's Simon Levette. I'm the Centre Manager of the ABC Assessment Centre, and today we're going to demonstrate how to install a brick slip soffit system and bolt it up to a masonry support angle. And that part you can see in another video of ours. And today I'm going to enlist the help of Ian Mitchell. So Ian's going to help me with the practical side of things. And before we start, I'm just going to get a couple of words from Ian about his experience in the construction industry and how he's going to help me today.
Thank you, Simon. The experience to date is a 3-year apprenticeship in brickwork. Stayed on the trail for another 17 years. Moved into site management, which was site manager, leading on to contracts manager. So bringing a bit of experience to today's filming. Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks Ian. So what is a brick soffit system? Well, it's there to provide hidden support for hanging brickwork in an area that would otherwise be left uncovered. For example, on the underside of a ceiling or a lintel. Modern systems feature mechanically fixed brick slips. For example, on metal runners, like the ACS Azure 2 system we're fitting today. And that means that they have an A1 or A2 non-combustibility rating, meaning that they can be used on projects that exceed 18 metres in height. The ABC Assessment Centre's Brick Soffit Systems short course goes into more detail about the uses and limitations of the different systems. But for now, we're going to talk about the health and safety considerations that need to be taken into account when installing a brick soffit system. Some health and safety considerations before installing brick soffit systems. Some brick soffit systems are heavy and require mechanical lifting. However, others, such as the lightweight bolt-up system we're using today, should still require 2 operatives for moving, handling and fixing. This is not necessarily because they are heavy and because of the weight of the system, but more because the brick slips are very fragile and should not be damaged when on site. Take care of sharp corners, especially when you're using shear plate metal, for example, with the masonry support angles that you're bolting up to, and the usual slips, trips and falls hazards that you would associate with working up on a scaffold. So you've got to make sure that your work area is really, really clean and tidy to avoid any obstructions being there and to avoid any hazards. In any case, you should always check the rams before carrying out the task. Before we go any further in this video, it's worth pointing out the personal protective equipment or PPE that you must wear when on site, because without wearing this personal protective equipment, you cannot even get to the point where you're doing the installation similar to that we're doing on the video today. So what do I mean by PPE? Well, it's a 5-point PPE, and myself and Ian here have the correct 5-point PPE, which consists of hard hat, glasses, high-vis vest, gloves, and steel toe cap boots. Remember, there are some jobs on site or some tasks that require additional PPE, and information related to these can all be found in the RAMS document. Welcome to the equipment table. So on this table, we have everything that we need to install a brick soffit system to manufacturer specifications. First of all, we have the non-combustible rated brick soffit system. We have nuts, bolts and washers. We have an isolation gasket. We have shims. We have a calibrated torque wrench with hexagonal fitting. And we have levels, both laser and traditional. So let's start with the brick slip system itself. This is a brick slip soffit system. Now, brick slips are pre-cut and pre-made. They're pre-selected by the client, and the bricks are cut off-site in a factory, in this case in the ACS factory, as this is the Azure 2 product, and they're installed on a steel frame system, and they are slid onto this steel frame, exposing the face brickwork side and also the underneath side. In this case, we have a corner detail as we have a corner pistol brick. Other systems could just have straight facing brickwork, in this case in stretcher bond, but you can also have header bond, you can also have soldier bond to match whatever kind of facade aesthetic you are looking for. Take the nut, which has a rounded top, and the rounded top edge you insert into the channel, which runs all the way along the brick soffit system. Go to the end, pop it in. Okay, and as you see, that's not going anywhere. So in terms of secure fastenings, that is there in the channel, ready for the bolt to come down. On the top side of your masonry support angle, remember when you're offering it up to the support angle, you would take the bolt and the washer. So you place your washer in. This would go on one side of the masonry support angle, i.e. on the top side of the masonry support on the shelf. You would add in your isolation shim or your isolation gasket to avoid bimetallic corrosion as two metals are being placed together. That you would place on top of the fixing position. You would create a slit so that the bolt could go down into it, and via your masonry support, you insert it in there and you hand tighten. Now that is step number one. Very, very simple. And to tighten properly, i.e. to finish the tightening to manufacturer specification, you would use one of these, a calibrated torque wrench with an Allen key fixing at the bottom, okay, or a hexagonal fitting. You only use the torque wrench once you've leveled and made sure that each system is level with the next one, with the adjacent system. And also, if we're talking about corners, we're talking about other details, you can use either a traditional level, or you can even set up a laser level so that you've got the line for the entire soffit run. To account for any inconsistencies in terms of the dimensions, in terms of what you're fixing to, you can also use some packing shims or some isolation shims, which actually increase the depth of the soffit system and allow it to hang slightly lower. Now that we've completed all of our checks, the first thing to do is to set out. We need to set out to make sure that all of the different components of the system go in the right place when it comes to install, as per the manufacturer's drawings and specifications. It's really important that if you are setting out your brick soffit system or the components of your system onto the scaffold, do not set them out or lay them down directly onto the boards. Manufacturers usually suggest a polystyrene or something like an expansion foam or something similar to cushion the brick face and go between the brick slip and the scaffold board. Ian is now marking the position for the nut that go within the channel of the brick soffit system components. Now he's introducing the square nuts into the channel in preparation for offering up to the masonry support system. With help from me, Ian is now lifting up the first soffit system and positioning the nuts underneath the holes in the masonry support angle. Ian is now hand tightening the bolts through into the nut, into the channel of the soffit system. Once hand tight and hanging from the masonry support angle safely, it's now time to measure the bearing of the brickwork past the end of the masonry support angle, which should be 32 millimeters as per the specifications of this system. Ian and I are now repeating the process with the second brick soffit component, including hand tightening the bolts, checking the measurement of the 32 millimeter bearing of the brick face, and also ranging the two units to make sure that they are level with each other. Once the two units are ranged and levelled, it's now a case of making any final adjustments, which includes adding any GRP shims as supplied by the manufacturer. Ian is now adjusting the fittings to the correct tolerance with a torque wrench. As you can see, we've now finished the installation procedure. We've installed a horizontal run of brick soffits as well as an internal corner. Before we finish though, I just want to get a couple of top tips from our professional bricklayer, Ian. So Ian, do you have any top tips for us in terms of the installation of a brick soffit system?
Thank you, Simon. We sure have. So as this is a new technique to us bricklayers, it's a modern thing that's been introduced to help the building industry, as we do lack in labour at the moment, labour supply. But there's no reason why we can't turn our hands to this, because it's a follow-on to further brickwork. The main tip of this is to make sure you're getting the right components together before we start. And again, follow the drawings, but it's nothing too scary about this. So crack on. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, that's great. And a really good point you make about employability and skills. Because ultimately, the more skills you have, the more use you're going to be to your employer. And that could translate ultimately into your earning capacity going up and being more useful on site. So all that's left to say is, on behalf of Ian and myself, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon for another video.